Hi, I'm Ashley from Peach Trees and Bumblebees, and today I'm reviewing this Sage Mixer by Heston Blumenthal. The mixer is a bit different than normal mixers because it has this fantastic scraping edge. So as you can see, the edge around the side is flexible, so it's meant to scrape as it goes, which is what makes it so different and exciting. I'm going to be using this mixer for the first time today with you guys. I'm going to be making an ombre cake, which will be 3 layers of slightly differently coloured pinky red sponge covered in a white frosting. I will be using both this one with the scrapey bits on it and the balloon whisk attachment. Throughout I will be having a look at things such as noise, speed, things that are good about it, things that are not good about it if anything, and I'll be telling you what I think at the end. I should point out that the mixer was sent to me by Sage themselves, so thank you very much for that. It is beautiful. I can't wait to try it, so let's have a go. So I'm going to start by using this mixer. First of all, I'm going to cream some butter and sugar together, and that's when sort of scraping down the sides becomes really important, so I'm really looking forward to trying out this on the mixer. Right, so it slots on like that. It's very nice. And I'll start weighing out some ingredients. So the recipe for this cake will be underneath the video, and if I can figure out how to, it will be one of these corners somewhere on the YouTube video. But it will just be a pretty simple sponge cake adapted from a hummingbird recipe, which I use all the time, but it's kind of my version of it. So I'm actually going to use stalk instead of butter this time. I've been told that Mary Berry prefers using stalk, so we'll see how it turns out. So, in the bowl, which looks like this, there is 280 grams of caster sugar and 80 grams of butter / stalk, in this case stalk. So I'm going to pop it into the mixer, spin it round to fit. Button on the top is how you close it down. Lower it in. Ooh, that's a pretty light show for you. And let's see how we go. Ooh. Start a bit slowly because it's got quite large amounts of butter in it and I don't want it to just go and go everywhere. But once it's come together a bit, then I'll turn it up to creaming. So over here you can see the mixer in action, and it really is scraping down the edges as it goes. It's brilliant. And it's all come together really nicely and got that lovely buttery, sugary, pale and fluffiness. So I've just added the flour, and now I'm going to add a tablespoon of baking powder. And a generous pinch of salt. So that's about that much. Right, now I'm going to put it back in the mixer and beat it together until it has a sort of grainy, sandy texture. Okay. Push it down. And while that's doing that, I'm going to remember to preheat my oven to 190 degrees. If you have a fan oven, go a bit lower, but my oven is pretty blur, so beautiful. That's now come together nicely with, oh, I've just noticed that bit down there is counting up how long it's been going for. So if you have a recipe that says beat for 5 minutes, then that's really handy. I like it. So you can scrape the bits of spare butter off your mixture in case it's gathered, which I believe is quite common. I use my clean hands for this, but you can obviously use a spatula if you prefer. Have a quick feel of that. It should, as you can see, have quite a sort of soft sandy consistency at the moment. So you don't want any lumps of butter in there, you want it to be nice and smooth. So brush that off in there, rinse my hands again. You can have all the fancy tools you like, but I think having a good set of hands, a good set of clean hands, is one of the most useful things in the kitchen. And then, perfect! It has hit the consistency I want. So next I will be adding a combination of milk and eggs. So it's ideally whole milk because it's got that extra bit of fat, and then remember there's not a huge amount of butter in this recipe. So you want 280 ml of whole milk, which is about there. And you want to crack in 2 eggs. As well as your eggs, I like to add some vanilla bean paste. You can use a good quality vanilla essence if you like. I like the paste because I like the fact that it has the little vanilla pods in it. So the one I'm using today is Nielsen Massey, which is one of the best vanillas out there in my opinion. It's very good. Another good one is, I believe it's called Little Pod, but I will check that. And they do a really nice paste in a tube, which I've used many times. So you can either pour it out like that. I'm pretty generous with my vanilla, so that is just over a teaspoon, which I'm putting in now. If you can afford to buy a good quality vanilla, then I really do recommend it, because it's vanilla extract. Proper vanilla extract is it's just much nicer than vanilla flavouring, so I do recommend that if you can afford to. Now, next I'm going to beat this mixture together gently with a fork, just until it comes together and the yolks are both broken. I used to love doing this as a child. And you'll need to give it a bit of a boost if you are using a vanilla paste as well, because otherwise it might clump together and you don't really want that. So just beat it for a couple of minutes until you have a nice creamy mixture. And then what you want to do is you want to turn your mixer back on, like that, on a medium speed. So on this one I've gone for, helpfully it has them up the side, which is really good. I've gone for folding and kneading for now, just because it's a low speed while I add the liquid. So, just be adding a little bit at a time, like that, to allow it to come together without overwhelming it. Now the mix is working quite hard, so I wanted to test it, and it is doing very well. Add a bit more in. Ooh. And it's starting to go a bit more slack. And this is where the scraping really comes into its own. I'm really impressed with this. Because quite often when you're making a cake, you need to be scraping down the sides all the time, just to make sure that all the ingredients are mixed together. But this is doing it for you, which really is nifty. I wouldn't be surprised if other brands start doing this if it's not been trademarked. So add a bit more in. By now you should have quite a smooth cake mix going around there. And then a bit more. You should be very wary of beating anything with flour in it too much, because that can actually give it quite a tough closed texture. That's why a lot of recipes will get you to fold stuff instead of mixing in flour. Add the last bit in now. Make sure you've got any little vanilla seeds at the bottom that I've all scraped in. I'll show you what it's doing over here. So, as you can see, it's really scraping as it goes round. It's brilliant. I'm really impressed with that. I think now we're just about ready to put it into the cake tins. So I'm going to stop that there. I am a really big fan of using 6-inch cake tins. So, these are loose bottom ones, they're quite heavy duty. I believe I got these from Lakeland, who do very good quality cake tins. Yeah, it's the My Kitchen range at Lakeland. They literally slot in like that. They're smaller than your average cake, but I usually make 3 layers with them, so you get a sort of quite a tall, proud little cake, and they're absolutely brilliant. So, that's how I'm going to make this one. I have to say, one small criticism is that stuff does tend to get sort of a little bit caught on the thing. That's me with every mixer really. I think with the paddles it tends to get some of the stiffer stuff a bit stuck, so I would just keep an eye on that. So I'm going to just whiz it around one more time. I love cake mix. You really shouldn't eat it, especially if you're sensitive to raw eggs, for example if you're pregnant, but I can't resist. It's also very quiet, I have to say. I'm quite impressed. Lovely. So this is the slightly complicated bit with an ombre cake, and it's not hard. You just need to have, ideally, some identical bowls, in my case 3 for my 3 layers, where you can split the mixture up and then dye it to each colour that you would like. I'm going to be using, I bought some new red paste food dye in this little pot earlier this week, and these give a really, really vibrant colour, so it's the first time I'm using this particular brand. But you'll only need a tiny, tiny bit in each one, and obviously a bit more for the most powerful colour and a bit less for the least powerful colour. So what you need to do is, push that in to pop it out, and shake that off. If you're feeling very naughty, lick it off. So put one of your bowls on the scales, like so. And then, because I haven't already weighed the mixture, which probably I should have done, you need to pour it out. So I'm going to start with 70, no, I'm going to go for a bit more. I'm going to go for 110, 113. I've only got 2 of the 6-inch pans, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to do it in 2 rounds in the oven, but they don't take that long to cook, so that's alright. I'm going to grease the tins with just a little bit of stalk, just to make sure they don't stick. By all means, if you want to line the tins, then go for it. I'm not going to, because I'm feeling like a bit of a cowboy this evening. But if you are worried, then definitely do it. Lovely. Cool. So, I now have my darkest one, my middle one, and my pale one. Now, because you weighed them out, they will all be even in size, in theory. So that means that your cake should fit together nicely. Now I'm going to pop them in the oven and bake them for probably about 15 minutes, but I'll chuck in them after about 12 minutes just to make sure that they're not overly done. So they're going to go in on the top shelf, side by side, because they're only little. And there we go, into the oven. Now, while they're baking, I'm going to make the icing. So I'm just going to do a really simple white buttercream for this, because I think part of the surprise of an ombre cake is cutting it open and seeing all the colours inside. So we're going to go for very plain white icing, but we're going to put some very pretty little things on top. So, for the icing, you need to get your bowl back. So if you haven't washed your bowl up, go and wash it up now. So, to make the icing, you're going to need icing sugar, which I have out here, and butter and milk and vanilla. You need 500 grams of icing sugar, which you can weigh out now. If you're feeling very good, you can sieve it, but I don't usually because I'm lazy. Right. Whoop. Then you need 160 grams of butter. Don't use stalk for this, always use butter for icing because you will taste the difference. Your butter at this point really needs to be room temperature, so it needs to be quite soft so that it all can come together. If it's too hard, it'll just go mental around the bowl and spread icing sugar everywhere. And you want to be using the balloon whisk attachment. So that is this one. So pop it on. Ooh, like that. They're very easy to put on actually. And then look at that way, turn it on. Button at the top goes down. Right. So because it could be quite volatile because it's icing sugar and butter together, we're going to start it on the lowest possible speed. That's starting to come together in a sort of almost like the same sandy consistency as before. So while that's doing that, I'm going to measure out 50 ml of milk. just turn the speed up now because it's less likely to fling it everywhere. And while it's doing that, I'm going to add some vanilla bean paste again to the milk. I again put in a whole teaspoon of this because I like it. So I'm going to mix that in together. You can see that the butter and icing sugar has come together, and I'm just going to add in the milk, and that will start to change its consistency. Oops. As you can see, it's starting to really come together in sort of recognisable buttercream. And now we turn it up. I'm just going to turn it down a bit more. Actually, I'm going to turn it off and just check that it's not poisonous. So as you can see, you're getting quite a nice stiff frosting, but it's actually very light. Very sweet, but very tasty. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just scrape around the edges, and I'm going to whip it on medium for another 3 minutes, and then I think it will reach the desired consistency. Whoopsie daisies. So I'm just going to scrape around the edges of the bowl, like that. You can see we've got some really beautiful buttercream in there. If you beat it for a really long time on really, really high, then it will start to liquefy and it will lose its structure. So I'm going to beat it on beating and creaming, that sort of section, on the list here for 3 minutes. Right, it's been beating for 3 minutes and it's achieved the consistency I like. So, it looks beautiful. Really vanilla-y. If you're looking for Christmas gift ideas, you can never have too many spatulas. These are so handy. As you can see, I've got a really lovely fluffy buttercream that will beautifully cover my cake. I don't know if you can see, but it's got some lovely little flecks of vanilla in there. So I'm really happy with the way that it whipped it up because it's a very consistent motion. The planetary mixing is absolutely essential really for whipping anything to any sort of volume. Like egg whites, you really need the whole bowl to be getting all of the whipping. So I'm impressed with that. It's a nice machine actually, it really is, it's beautiful. I mean, it's fast, it's quiet, I like the way it lights up, and I love the way it times it. So all in all, I would give the Sage by Heston Blumenthal Scraper Mixer Pro 5 stars. Right, so it's now about an hour and a half-ish later. The sponges are all cooked, and they took about 20-25 minutes each, so a bit longer than I thought, but they look okay. Here is my my darkest layer, so I'm going to put that on the bottom. You can just compare, you can see the sort of size for one thing, but you can compare the graduation of colour, which will look like that, which will hopefully be lovely when you cut the cake. Scoop a bit out, not too much, and just dollop it in the middle. I give the mixer 5 stars, and that is how to make a 3-layered ombre cake. I'm now going to leave that for the icing to dry, and then I'll pop it in an airtight container overnight, and I'll feed it to people tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye!